So how do we actually build that change, right? That's the question. And we live in a political system that is dominated by memberless parties, right? And you see the effects of this, in polling in 2020, and it's dropped a little, right? You can actually see the Democratic Party base getting pulled to the right by their, neoliberal leadership, as major issues are taken off of the table under the Biden administration. But if you look in 2020 polling, you saw over 90% of Democrats supported Medicare for all, right? It was not supported by, Joe Biden said he would veto it if it passed. The same goes for Green New Deal. It has over 60% of public approval. Legalization of marijuana, which Greens have been for a long time, has large approval ratings. Protecting women's rights, and reproductive freedom, has again we saw it in the midterm elections. While there are a lot of right-wing states that are really cracking down and passing repressive laws regarding reproductive freedom, anywhere it was on the ballot, it was protected. When any state where the voters actually got to choose whether they wanted access to abortion, the voters said yes. And so when we think about green policies, and I said this one at the beginning when we talked about what do Greens actually stand for, we have to keep in mind that green policies are overwhelmingly majoritarian policies. They're publicly popular policies. Medicare for all, Green New Deal, campaign finance reform, right? These are all very, very popular. So the question becomes, if they're popular and we're not winning, how can we better organize and win that green vision? A couple of quotes to kind of put this into context. If you are interested in actually learning, deep diving into green organizing and green theories of organizing, you can check out our old 101s on Howie Hawkins YouTube. Though in the 2022 101s, when we did our organizing 101s, we spent 2 to 3 hours in deep dives on these things. There's a whole 2+ hour workshop on how to revitalize your Green Party local if it's kind of stagnated. There's another whole 2-hour one on how to start a new one from scratch. We talk about a lot of different organizing theories and things like that. And then I will also, at the Green Party annual national meeting, which is August 3rd through 6th, and it's going to be virtual online. I'm going to be doing an organizing 101 workshop that you can check out. But to kind of give us a mindset, for thinking about green organizing, we've got a few quotes from Karl Marx. Even when there is no prospect whatsoever of their being elected, the workers must put up their own candidates in order to preserve independence, to count their forces, and to bring before the public their revolutionary attitude and party standpoint. In this connection, they must not allow themselves to be seduced by such arguments of the Democrats as, for example, that by doing so they are splitting the Democratic Party and making it possible for the reactionaries to win. The ultimate intention of all such phrases is to dupe the proletariat. The spoiler argument is nothing new, right? This is Karl Marx directly addressing it and rejecting it. It is essential that the working class has a working class party. And when we put our energies into a capitalist party, hoping that they will, reform things to the benefit of the working class, we are being duped, as Marx said, and we are, spending our very finite time and resources funneling it into an organization that fundamentally doesn't have our interests at heart. Eugene Jebs said, "I'd rather vote for something I want and not get it than vote for something I don't want and get it." And I think that perfectly encapsulates the American voting culture right now. In the U.S., I like to say that we have a negative voting culture. Most people, Republican or Democrat, are voting against things, not for things. And when you vote against something, And there may be rational reasons for that vote, right? It may be the best, your best decision, and based on your, kind of balance of pros and cons and risk and reward. So it's not saying that there isn't a justification for it, but when you vote against something, you kind of run into this wall where the candidates that are running take every vote that's for them as an endorsement of their policies, right? Howie called it getting lost in the sauce of the Democratic Party, right? When you're a Medicare for all supporter, but you voted for Joe Biden because of you were afraid of Donald Trump, and rightfully you were afraid of Donald Trump, right? But when you cast that vote, Joe Biden, who said he would veto Medicare for all, said, "Hey, this guy's with me," right? He didn't get the memo that you actually aren't with him and that you want him to pass Medicare for all. The same for an environmentalist who voted out of fear of Donald Trump. Well, you voted for Joe Biden, and what we're getting out of that is, corporate welfare as climate policy, opening up hundreds of millions of acres to new oil and gas exploration, making it easier for pipelines to get their, to get for new pipelines to get funded and underway. And at best we get, out of the neoliberal climate agenda, we get tax breaks for electric vehicles that most of us will never be able to afford, even with the tax breaks, right? And so this Debs quote is really, really important. If you want something, you have to vote for it. And if you vote against the thing you want, then it's really hard to actually win and achieve it. And then closing up with with Rosa Clemente, who is a vice presidential candidate for the Green Party. And she said, "The Green Party is no longer the alternative. The Green Party is the imperative. We cannot continue on this path of supporting two capitalist parties that are driving us, accelerating us towards destruction. It is imperative that we take a new path."